as Ash and Surge both grab their Pokeballs, throwing them towards one another with all their might. Ash sits with his hands clasped around a Pokeball. As he stares straight towards a wall, the only thing he is able to think about is the battle he had just experienced. We watch through cloudy vision, Ash's Munchlax staring down Voltorb, speeding around the arena faster than Ash and Munchlax can even see, firing off sonic booms one after another, slowly chipping away at the chubby Pokemon. Ash tries to retaliate with a Bulldoze, the move Ash has been teaching Munchlax. However, due to the pair not having fully mastered it yet, it's unsuccessful, the move only shaking the ground mildly. Voltorb, hardly taking any damage from this attack, fires off an Electro Ball which finishes off Munchlax. Next, Litten enters the battlefield, managing to knock out Voltorb with a Fake Out and Flame Charge combination. However, even while feeling the benefits of a speed boost, the Firecat is unable to dodge any of the lightning bolts fired off by Surge's next Pokemon, that being Electabuzz. The Pokemon sends thunder after thunder after thunder at Surge's command. Litten tries its best to stand for its trainer, dodging any attack it can, but after getting hit 3 times consecutively, it's unable to find its footing and passes out. Ash calls out for his partner Pokemon, running onto the field, holding it before moving off the battle, noticing it has knocked out. Ash apologises to Litten, he could have commanded it better there, and this causes Surge to taunt the boy, asking if this is all the student of the mighty Kukui could do. Ash, now angry, realises he's pinned and he needs to do something. Reaching down for his final Pokeball, he goes to throw it before stopping himself. He remembers this is Beedrill's Pokeball. He remembers the deal he had made with the Mon. Knowing it's not ready to face a Pokemon as strong as Electabuzz, he hates what he's going to have to do, but it needs to be done. So Ash forfeits, making Surge the winner and causing him to taunt the boy, asking him if he's lost his fighting spirit and now he's seen the true power of an electric type master. Ash says nothing and rushes out towards the Pokemon Center, knowing how much damage each of his Pokemon had taken. Surge smiles confidently until Ash leaves the room, before dropping the smile and turning back to his training. We join Ash back in the Pokemon Center, looking at Beedrill's Pokeball, unsure if he is annoyed in himself for going to use the Pokemon without asking, or for the fact he lost so easily, letting Kukui down. While having this thought, Ash hears his own name called. Looking over to see Nurse Joy holding both Litten and Munchlax's Pokeball, he walks over to learn that both of them are fine, but will need a few days rest before they can start fully battling again. However, light training should be okay. Ash thanks the woman as he starts to head towards the exit, but while he walks towards the exit, he notices the phone booths, and in a quick change of heart, walks towards them. He isn't sure who he's going to call. After all, he doesn't even know where to begin searching for Kukui, so there's no chance he could call him, and even if he could, he's not sure he could face him right now. He had failed at the first hurdle Kukui had set up in their challenge, and he had also proven that he might not be worth being Kukui's student. Thinking this, Ash almost leaves, but then decides he needs to talk to someone, and he only has one other person in mind. So he calls the other person who was a father figure to him all his life, in Professor Oak, hoping that his original sponsor might have some words of advice for him, or at least give him an idea of what to do next. So, as he begins to dial up Professor Oak, the man almost looks shocked to see Ash, having heard from him very little since the beginning of his journey. So at first, of course, the man's excited to see his former student, but when getting a closer look, he's met with unsure eyes. Oak can tell something is off, so he changes up his posture a bit, asking the boy what's wrong. Ash pulls a face which makes Oak remember an old friend. Ash goes on explaining about how he and Kukui had recently made a bet, how Kukui had recently left, and that he thought he was fine until he lost a battle with someone who called him out for not being worthy of being Kukui's student. And it's not only this dude, hundreds of people must be thinking it, who have seen the news report of Kukui possibly having a student. On top of that, Gary also seems to believe it, and now he's not even sure what makes him so special to be a famous trainer's student, or if he's even worthy. Professor Oak sighs, not only at the thought of his no-good grandson causing this kind of turmoil in another trainer, but also how he's having to have a very similar conversation to one he had with his grandson already. He sighs a bit more as Ash looks desperately for advice. Oak relaxes his posture, slipping into his chair a little bit, for a few seconds as he looks at Ash and asks the trainer why does it matter who he's the student of. Ash's face changes from despair to confused, as if not getting the question at first. Oak, not getting an answer, asks again, why does it matter who his mentor is? Ash is once again left silent before he says that because he's the student of a great trainer, he just needs to be as great. But Oak cuts him off, saying that he's wrong, as he shakes his head, saying that it doesn't matter who your teacher, parents or grandparents are. The only thing that matters is who you are. Nothing else, nothing more. Ash says that this could be true, but he is the student of the next champion of Kanto, so he can't afford to not be strong. But Oak just sighs louder, saying that every great trainer started from where he is standing currently. Whether it be a champion, gym leader, another trainer, a coordinator, a poker ringer master, Pokemon ranger and even professors have all stood where he stands, at the very beginning, at the start line. But the thing that defines a great trainer isn't how fast they run, how long they run for, or how quick they achieve their goal. All that matters is that when you get knocked down, you continue to get up. It doesn't matter how many walls you hit, it doesn't matter how many stumbles you take. All that matters is that you get up again. That will define a great trainer. Someone who can continuously get knocked down and continue to get back up, regardless of how many times they fall. Even the great Kukui has had multiple trips and multiple falls and multiple fails. But what defines him and what makes people love him is the fact that even after he's failed in every region he's taken a step in, he gets back up and tries again, brushing it off and continuing forward. Ash, hearing this, is curious, having never heard anything about Kukui failing, but before he can even ask, the sound of lightning striking is heard from Oak's side of the screen, making Ash flinch and Oak click on to what he was doing moments before calling Ash. As Oak looks a bit panicked, he tells Ash that he has to go, but leaves him with some final words, saying that he was amazing enough that he grabbed the attention of 2 different sponsors, and that should be something he's proud of. Continue to be the amazing trainer he is, and don't let anyone define who he is, not even Kukui. With that said, Oak turns off the monitor, and Ash is left staring at a black screen with his own reflection in it. He gets to see how mopey he looks in his reflection. He spends a second looking at it before thinking about what Oak said. Everyone fails. Even Kukui has. And maybe that even means Gary has. So, as Ash smiles at this thought, realising that everyone will fail, he just needs to get back up, he pulls himself up from the chair and heads round to the back of the Pokemon Center. He apologises to Maul about the loss, but he tells them he wants to turn their luck around, explaining how for the next week they will be training to get back into good shape before they earn their 3rd badge, and to take this first step in their bet to make it Celadon before 2 months is up. With a mighty cheer, all of Ash's Pokemon fall into place, getting on with their training almost immediately, and for the first time in a while, even Beedrill joins in, clearly wanting to help in the rematch. Ash, seeing this, decides that Beedrill will be best used as a training partner for Litten. The level gap has closed substantially, and knowing that Litten has a type advantage over Beedrill should hopefully work as good training to help Beedrill get over its fear of battle. Ash can clearly see that Litten has taken the loss just as bad as he had, maybe even worse, and is pushing itself much harder than ever before. Ash, seeing this, tries to talk to Litten to figure out what's going on, but Ash can quickly see that the Pokemon is handling its first loss quite well, wanting to move forward and grow stronger so it doesn't lose again. Ash, seeing this, decides to leave it to it, knowing that its training alone and with Beedrill will be very beneficial. All the while, Ash helps Munchlax's master Bulldoze, knowing the attack will be useful going forward. Thanks to Ash using the Pokemon battlefield as a training ground, he's challenged quite often by multiple trainers who are also on their way to challenge Surge. Ash uses as a great chance to build up some momentum and gain his confidence back, winning multiple of his battles and soon having a bit of a reputation around the Pokemon Center as being almost as unbeatable as Surge. And once him and his team have got their confidence back, they get ready to take on the gym again, getting a good night's rest before heading out and taking on the gym. Ash makes it to the gym with his heart racing through his chest, The entire walk he replays the last fight in his head, knowing Surge will either use an electric type's massive speed or his Electabuzz' incredible power to try and throw him off his game. Ash knows he won't lose like last time. As Ash walks through the doors, he finds Surge working out alongside his Electabuzz, but the sound of his gym door opening grabs the man's attention. Looking up, he locks eyes with Ash, who stands a bit shaky but declaring he is here for a rematch. Surge grows a smile which would scare a Gyarados, but this is a smile of excitement. He's surprised to see the boy back so fast after his loss, and this makes him excited almost. Surge quickly jumps to his feet, telling the boy that if he is here, he needs to know the fight will be on the same terms as last time, a 3-on-3. Ash nods, having hoped for this, as the pair stand in similar positions to where they once stood, facing off against one another once again. They grab their Pokeballs and throw out Voltorb and Beedrill. Ash, being familiar with the lightning fast orb Pokemon, gets ready to battle, while Surge looks at the rather timid looking bug on the other side of his gym battlefield. He laughs at the sight of the bug, but Ash stays silent, remembering that Beedrill wanted to help him win this battle, and Ash knows that Beedrill might have the level advantage over Voltorb, meaning it might be the only Pokemon Beedrill can help him beat before its fear overtakes it. So Ash cheers out for his bug-type Pokemon, reminding it to do its best. The mon shakes its head, trying to shake away its fear, looking towards the very serious and menacing looking muscular man. Surge gives Ash the first move, and Ash is happy to take it, as he calls for an X-Scissor from Beedrill. The bug-type races forward faster than Surge was expecting for its looks, as Beedrill slashes an X into the orb Pokemon's face, knocking it back a few inches, while building some distance with its wings, putting a bit of a gap between them. However, Surge, knowing this would happen, calls out for a Sonic Boom, as the attack races forward, hitting Beedrill, doing a small chunk of damage, but shaking up the Pokemon a bit. However, at order of its trainer to use Rock Smash, Beedrill shakes fear away and races forward, stingers glowing with fighting type energy. Surge, seeing the power of each swing coming towards Voltorb, calls for an agility to try and avoid the attacks. However, the stingers of Beedrill swing wildly towards Voltorb, unable to hit the fast moving orb, which continues to grow faster. As Surge taunts Ash for not being able to hit his Voltorb, Ash can see that Beedrill's losing its cool trying to hit Voltorb as it slowly gets faster and faster, so he tries to figure out a way to slow it down. After a few seconds of thinking, Ash has an idea, telling Beedrill to fly to the top of the room and start firing off string shots in every direction it wants, telling it to cover the entire battlefield, no, the entire gym, with string. Beedrill follows its trainer's orders, breaking away from its Rock Smash barrage, flying upwards, as it begins to fire off string shot after string shot, using its pass as a scared Weedle to fire off as much string shot as possible. All the while, Surge sees an opportunity to fire off a barrage of Sonic Booms, so making its Voltorb fire off continuous blast of sonic energy towards Beedrill. Each attack lands, however Beedrill continues to fire off its spider web of string, and after a few seconds of being bombarded by sonic booms and firing off its string shots, soon the entire gym room looks like a spider web. More importantly, Voltorb finds itself boxed in, completely surrounded by webs, and having been hit by a few, it has been slowed down. Surge calls for a spark to try and break out of the webs, but it only makes Voltorb bounce off it and land a bit roughly on the ground. Ash, seeing Voltorb confined to a foot square, calls for a barrage of Rock Smash and X-Scissors. Beedrill nods its head, effortlessly weaving through the surrounding webbing to make it to Voltorb, where it unleashes a barrage of Rock Smash and X-Scissors to the now immobile Voltorb. As the Pokemon tries to dodge with all it can, it being trapped in a small area allows Beedrill to beat into the Pokemon quite effortlessly, and after a few seconds of beating around a ball, eventually Beedrill is declared the winner as Voltorb is unable to battle. The Pokemon cheers out in glee, copying his Pokemon trainer. All the while, Surge is surprised at how powerful the bug type seems to be. Plus, Ash having managed to shut him down the way he did, he finds this all a bit interesting, and now he's really invested in the fight. So Surge gives the kid some praise before telling him he won't stand a chance against his next Pokemon. As he throws out the Pokeball containing Electabuzz, the Pokemon lands on the battlefield with a thud, letting out a bolt of lightning as it lands. Sharing its trainer's crazed smile, the look on its face scares Beedrill, who flutters backwards towards its trainer, Knowing his Pokemon wants to leave, Ash thanks Beedrill as he recalls the Pokemon, thinking to himself he's really proud it stood in for so long. As he calls out Munchlax next, the Mon comes out awake and rearing to go. Even Surge can see the Pokemon is not wanting to waste a second, wanting its revenge. So, Surge decides to get the battle starting, calling out for a Brick Break. Electabuzz breaks out into a sprint, racing forward at an amazing speed. Well, at least at first, before it runs into the first batch of String Shot, then the second, then the third, then the fourth. It's slowly getting slower and slower and slower, and Ash can see this. Seeing an opportunity, he calls out for a Screech, so Munchlax lets out a bellowing roar, which Electabuzz feels the effects of. However, it still manages to make it to Munchlax before the Pokemon can retaliate with any form of attack, slamming its giant fist into the small chubby Pokemon's face. It knocks Munchlax backwards into some webbing, causing it to lose some of its already minimal speed. Surge being able to tell that if the arena stays like this, it will cause some massive issues. So, he calls for a Thunder from Electabuzz. The Pokemon lifts its palms up and starts generating electricity in it before firing off a giant flash of lightning. This tears through all the webbing in the surrounding area, and more importantly hits Munchlax directly, causing Munchlax to travel with the lightning bolt for a few feet before arriving next to its trainer on the other side of the battlefield. With the webbing on the battlefield more directly cleared, Ash can start fighting back easier, as he tells his Pokemon to use a Bulldoze attack. Surge, remembering this attack didn't work last time, is ready for anything, unsure if he had managed to master it. So, as Munchlax jumps its little legs into the air and then slams its entire weight into the ground, causing the arena to shake. Having clearly mastered the move, Electabuzz, having had its defences dropped harshly a minute ago, feels a lot of pain from this one attack, even bringing Electabuzz down to one knee. Ash, having a chance, calls for a tackle, and Munchlax starts racing forward. Surge, wanting to finish Munchlax quick, calls for another Brick Break, knowing the Pokemon won't be able to take another fighting type attack. As the two Pokemon rush towards one another, they meet in the middle, and Electabuzz unfortunately continues to have the higher speed and the longer reach. Lands the Brick Break first, slamming its chopping hand down on Munchlax's head, and as the Pokemon jumps up to try and hit it back with a tackle, it collapses, having taken far too much damage. And as Munchlax passes out, Ash curses but thanks his friend as he recalls the Pokemon. Knowing he's down to his final Mon, he grabs Litten's Pokeball. Knowing his starter has been training harder than the others, he throws out the Pokeball and brings Litten onto the battlefield. Litten gets ready to fight straight away, as Ash cheers for his Pokemon, telling it to give it everything it's got. Ash calls for a Fake Out followed by a Flame Charge, and the cat nods, hopping side to side before jumping forward and clapping its palms together in front of Electabuzz, causing Electabuzz to flinch up, and as it falls backwards doing a backflip, landing, its body erupts into flames as it slams its head directly into Electabuzz's jaw, causing the giant yellow Pokemon to fall backwards and be passed out. All the while, Litten stays standing in a superhero pose. Surge, fully feeling the heat of the battle now, calls out for his final Pokemon in an Alolan Raichu. The Pokemon comes out floating on its tail, zipping around the battlefield in the sky, before stopping in front of Surge with a steely look in its eyes. Ash, having seen this Pokemon train against Surge's Electabuzz, having seen its speed, knows it's going to be fast, so he had tried to increase Litten's speed before any of the battle had even begun. So now, he calls for another Flame Charge in hopes to make sure that they can still match the speed. As Litten's body once again erupts into flame, it runs along towards Raichu, trying to hit the Pokemon. However, the floating rat is easily able to avoid the attack by flying upward using a quick burst of speed. Litten, having missed, turns its body with the momentum it had built, leaving scorch marks in the ground. Surge, seeing an opening, shouts out for a Thunderbolt, as Raichu collects a large sum of electricity in its palms before firing it out through its tail. Litten, having just stopped, can't avoid the attack as it's struck by lightning, getting completely engulfed, and after being in the bolt of lightning for a few seconds, is revealed to still be standing, but singed up a little bit. The Firecat cries out, showing its desire to continue battling. Ash, seeing this, calls for the only ranged attack he has, Ember, as Litten fires off a burst of flames, which Raichu is easily able to avoid by ducking down towards the ground to avoid the fire attack. Surge makes Raichu fight back with a quick attack, with Raichu vanishing before reappearing, having slammed its body into Litten before having taken back to the sky. However, this few seconds has given Ash an idea. He just needs to pull it off. So he calls for another Ember. Litten, a bit confused at why, follows its trainer's orders, firing off an attack. Surge once again counters the same way as before, ducking down and attacking with another quick attack. However, when quick attack is called for, jump onto Raichu's tail. Surge is a bit shocked and Litten nods its head, following Raichu the best it can with its eyes. Having spent some time training with Braviary, it's used to Pokemon much faster than this Raichu. So, even after the quick bursts of speed from quick attack, Litten is able to take the damage and jump onto Raichu's tail, and is taken into the air alongside Raichu. Once realising Litten is there, Raichu tries to shake off the unwanted passenger. However, Litten, not wanting to get shaken off, wraps its tail around Raichu's tail and bites down on Raichu's tail all at the same time, unleashing a barrage of embers from its mouth, causing bright lights to burst out of Litten's mouth as the attack connects instantly with Raichu's tail. Raichu starts trying to shake off Litten desperately, but Litten holds on with everything it's got, refusing to give up in this moment. Surge soon realises that this has to become a battle of endurance, so the smaller, weaker Pokemon will give up. So he calls out for Raichu to hit itself with Thunderbolt, in tow, shocking Litten. Hearing this, Ash calls out for Litten to hold on and keep fighting and keep burning with all it's got. The Pokemon lets out a muffled cry as it bites down, still firing off embers, the attack slowly evolving from a bite boosted by embers to a fire fang. All the while, Raichu fires off lightning bolts directly into itself, shocking Litten and doing some serious damage. Both Pokemon continue to get burnt and shocked for a few minutes as they float in the air, unmoving, just continuing the assault on one another. Trainers cheer out for their Pokemon, and after a few minutes of battling, they both fall to the floor, unmoving, crashing and landing quite hard. They watch on for a few seconds before the battle is announced a double knockout. Ash runs towards Litten and Surge walks towards his Raichu. Both trainers arrive and give their Pokemon some medical attention. Surge even hands Ash a potion to help heal Litten up. With both Pokemon up, Ash is declared the winner by Surge, who tells the boy that was an amazing battle, saying that he and his Pokemon showed some real improvement in only a week. Surge then says that everything Kukui had said about him was correct, and that he should get out of here and make sure his Pokemon are alright while handing over the gym badge. Ash looks on confused for a few seconds as he takes his gym badge, and before he can even question Surge, the man has disappeared into the back rooms of his gym, and realises he should just run off and go check out his Pokemon, make sure everyone's okay. So with Ash leaving in the back rooms with Surge, he sends one of his assistants off to the Pokemon Centre to get his own Pokemon checked out. All the while he shouts out to another one, a man named Vescius, asking him to call Kukui and tell him not only did his student pass, he did so with flying colours. The trainer nods as he scurries away to a nearby phone, while Surge looks at his Raichu, remembering to when his friend gifted him the Pokemon. Thinking to himself now they are even, he heads off to go get some rest. As Ash gets his Pokemon checked out, thinking back to the battle, each of his Pokemon battled with everything they had, and he couldn't be more proud. Even Beedrill fought its heart out. So, once they've rested up, he'll treat them to some food and then they'll hit the road once again. Once getting the all clear and feeding his Pokemon, they head down Route 11, where the boy finds himself taking this trip a bit more lightly, knowing not only will his Pokemon need the training and rest, but also he has well over a month to make it, so he's not panicking. He takes the time to take in nature and battle any trainers he comes across, just enjoying his journey. With a week passing, Ash can finally see the beach approaching. Thinking how he should snap himself a water type while he's over there, he decides that'll be a job for tomorrow, setting up a camp half a day away from the beach. When starting to set up his camp, he's about to call out his Pokemon when he smells something weird before passing out. He wakes up an unknown amount of time after to see a set of eggs wearing his hat and dancing around his badge case. Ash takes a second to figure out what's going on before he stands up, shouting out to the Execute, telling them to give him back his hat and its badges. The Pokemon hearing this goes pale, as it then starts bouncing away. Ash seeing this shouts out as he runs towards them, grabbing his backpack as he does so. As he chases the eggs into a nearby forest, he chases them for a few minutes before remembering he has Pokemon. Reaching into his back pocket, he grabs Litten's Pokeball and throws it out with a call of Fake Out. The Pokemon comes out, leaps forward, slamming its two hands together, not only causing the eggs to stop moving, but also caused them to drop the badge case in the mouth they were holding it in. Litten then follows this attack with a flame charge as it slams its entire body into the eggs, almost scrambling them, even knocking Ash's hat off one of the eggs. Ash, seeing this, walks forwards, grabbing his badge case and his hat, thanking Litten for what it had did. As he pockets his badge case and places his cap back on his head, he looks towards the Execute, who now look pretty scared and are still recovering from the last attack. Ash is about to go on scolding the eggs for stealing stuff. You can see they look genuinely kind of scared, and also just a bit unsure of what's going on. Ash spends a second looking at them before remembering back to Kukui's Bulbasaur, remembering how much he wanted a grass type. So he puts his head in his palms for a second before moving his head out. He asks if the Pokemon are alright, with them looking a bit confused but nodding each individual head. Ash apologises to them, saying that he only attacked them because they stole something from him, and they shouldn't do it again. Each head goes silent before quietly saying its name and nodding their head apologetically. Ash, seeing this, smiles before asking if the Pokemon would like to join him. They look confused as Ash explains that they would probably only cause more issues out here if he was to leave them here. Probably rob another trainer who wouldn't be able to catch them, or even worse, get themselves hurt from a Pokemon they pick a fight with. Plus, he must admit he does find grass types interesting, and a grass psychic type would be really cool. So he would like for them to join, if they would be happy to. Demon thinks before nodding its head as Ash throws a Pokeball forward, welcoming them to his team. As Ash goes to turn his back with his new fresh capture in his ball, a bright flame bursts through the forest, nearly hitting Ash and making him and Litten jump out of the way. Almost scorched and now confused, they wonder what the hell happened. So Ash looks the direction the fire came from and finds an opening where he sees the remains of a battlefield. After looking around for a few seconds, he sees burn marks, craters, claw marks, and then he sees a Charmander, Eevee, and even Galadian, a trainer Ash recognises, laying across the floor, unmoving. Ash races forward, throwing off his backpack and telling Litten to go into it and grab Aurum berries and some bandages. The Pokemon jumps off its trainer's shoulders, opening up the bag and grabbing what it needs with its mouth and tail. All the while its trainer runs forward. As Ash arrives over the top of Gladion, he can see the trainer is awake, but badly hurt, covered in burns and cuts. Gladion, being awake, tries to speak, tries to tell Ash to leave, but he can't, he hasn't got the strength. Ash shouts out telling him to stay awake, but Gladion can feel his eyelids getting really heavy. He's unable to stay awake for much longer, and the last thing he sees is Litten hand Ash some bandages before he blacks out. As Gladion comes to, he finds himself in his childhood bedroom, somewhere which would make most children feel comfortable, somewhere which would make them feel safe. This is a luxury Gladion doesn't have. As he sits on his bed, he feels so uncomfortable. He feels out of his own skin. As he looks down, he's wearing clothes he hates, and just already the desire to run has hit. But the sound of a young girl singing in another room calms him, lets him become more comfortable, allows him to start walking around his own room and feel safe. But soon, the sound of singing turns to screaming, as the walls around him are ripped away and he finds himself in a dark hallway. As he looks left to right, all he can see is black, pale walls, and the sound of a girl screaming once again is heard. However, this time it's accompanied by a woman laughing sadistically, coming from the right. Gladion turns his head to look down the right hallway as he starts running down it, screaming out the name Lily. And as he runs that direction of the scream, he makes it to the end of the hallway, where he stares down another hallway. He runs down this one to find another one, and so on and so forth. Each hallway only ever leads to another hallway. In some kind of Sisyphus-like torture, every hallway just leads to another hallway, and it never seems to end. All the while the sounds of Lily's scream echo through the hallway and echo through Gladion's mind. Each scream followed by the laughter of a woman who should protect him, a woman who should make him feel safe. And as Gladion turns what must be his 100th corner, he screams out in frustration as he finally sees a light with a shadow of his mother and his sister and another creature he never wanted to think about again. And just as he makes it to the light, just as he runs through the door, he jolts up awake. Looking around, he feels sweat running down his face. and a pain throughout his entire body. He feels out of breath and can hear his heart beating in his chest. He looks around for a few seconds, collecting himself, steadying his breath, all the while realising he's in his own tent. And as he looks through the gap in the door, he can see a campfire and a setting sun in the background. He wonders if he had managed to set up his own tent and camp before passing out, but then the sound of laughter can be heard. Gladion goes to check out what's going on, going to pull himself up, but he feels a sharp pain echo throughout his entire body as he looks down to see both his arms and legs having been completely covered in bandages. His memory still slightly hazy. He wonders how he had managed to do this and set up a tent before passing out. And as he walks out, he finds his Charmander and Eevee running around playing with a familiar looking feline. All the while, a trainer familiar to him sits stirring a pot of food, chuckling to himself. Gladion stands silently stunned at the sight of Ash and his Litten, but while he stands stunned and silent, Ash smiles, happy to see Gladion up. Gladion, now remembering seeing Ash just before passing out, he pieces everything together. Looking over to see, he sees Ash's tent set up just opposite his, and just a little bit out of sight from his tent. With Gladion caught in thought, having heard his name, both Charmander and Eevee turn to see their trainer. Eevee runs forward, nuzzling into Gladion's leg, while Charmander stands a few inches back, but letting out a small happy call of its own name. Gladion, seeing his Pokemon are alright, but bandaged up, smiles, happy to see they're both okay. Leaning down and stroking both of their heads, giving a small smile towards them with a silent thank you, before remembering Ash's present and turning to the other trainer, who is still wearing a smile while turning a pot full of food. Ash, seeing Gladion's attention now on him, he tells the trainer that both Eevee and Charmander were in pretty bad condition when he first got here, but truthfully his injuries were worse than both of them, telling Gladion that it looked like some sort of Pokemon had attacked him, but the claw marks are too big to be Eevee's or Charmander's. He tried using his dex, but that gave him mostly weird answers, so he was wondering if he could tell him what it was. As Ash smiles, Gladion looks annoyed, telling him that what caused those injuries is none of his business, and as thankful as he is for all the help, he and his Pokemon are leaving. Gladion tries to walk away before his body gives out underneath him and causing him to fall to one knee. Ash scolds Gladion, telling him that he shouldn't even be standing, yet alone walking. Gladion grips at the dirt underneath him, annoyed. He goes to speak, but Ash cuts him off, saying that he understands if he's a lone wolf, he'll get that. After all, he left last time they met, before they even ever got to battle, but right now if he keeps pushing himself, he's going to end up dead, so for now he needs to accept some help and rest. Gladion looks at Eevee and Charmander all healed up. Both look concerned for their trainer. He lets out a sigh before agreeing, telling Ash he will accept his help, at least until he's able to travel alone. Ash nods his head before gesturing for Gladion to sit down and eat. Offering out a hand to help Gladion up, the boy refuses, weakly walking over to the area Ash had set up to eat. Gladion sits down and Ash hands him some food that he had cooked. As Litten continues playing with Charmander and Eevee, Ash explains that he has already fed all of his team, plus he's fed Eevee and Charmander, asking if there's any more of Gladion's Pokemon he needs to feed, as he's got enough food. Gladion stays quiet as he nods his head, but explains that they will be alright till morning. Ash, hearing this, shrugs his shoulders, as the pair eat in silence for a few moments. Ash soon grows bored of this, however, asking Gladion where he is from. Gladion is already annoyed and tells Ash that he isn't from Kanto, making Ash laugh awkwardly at the no answer, and deciding to try and make a conversation, he asks why he's visiting, and if it is to take part in the Indigo League conference. Gladion now having a vein on his head, he tells Ash that he prefers to eat in silence. Ash apologises, but he explains how it's his first time interacting with someone else who's doing the gym challenge, so he's just a little excited, that's all. He apologises for anything annoying he asks. He just wants to get to know someone from a different region. After all, he and Gladion have met before, but he was a bit cold last time they talked, so he was hoping to get to know him a bit better here. After all, he seems like quite a good guy. Gladion, realising Ash won't stop until he gets an answer, decides to say a little bit. He explains how he's here doing some work for his boss, and he has no intention on doing the Indigo League conference, but for now he's just enjoying doing the gym challenge and benefiting from the strength he gains while doing it. Ash, once again getting a short answer, knows that he's getting nowhere, but when seeing Charmander laid on Litten sleeping, he knows how to get some conversation going. So Ash asks when he caught that Charmander with a grin. Gladion, a bit flustered, stumbles out that he caught it not long after they last met. Ash just laughs, saying that he knows he took Charmander from the Pokemon Center, and is happy that he did so. That Damien dude seemed awful. Gladion nods in agreement, and Ash goes on asking how he convinced Charmander to stay. Gladion, not seeing the harm in this line of questioning, answers truthfully, saying that it wasn't easy, but once Charmander saw that Damien was a terrible person, and Damien admitted to what he was planning on doing, he happily joined. Ash asks how he managed to do this, and this caused a genuine smile to show up on Gladion's face, with his answer being that he unleashed his scariest Pokemon on Damien until he admitted the truth to Charmander. After that, of course, Charmander was upset, but Gladion offered to help him become as strong as he knew it could, to prove Damien wrong. So it might have seemed hesitant at first, but soon agreed to join him. Since then, he has been training Charmander to the most he can, alongside his Eevee. Having said this, Gladion lets out a gentle smile as he looks at Charmander sleeping next to Litten, causing Ash to smile too, as he's happy to see that Charmander found a good trainer. Ash thanks Gladion for what he had done, stating that the Pokemon seems a lot happier. Clearly Gladion is a good trainer. But as Ash says this, it looks like Gladion almost is uncomfortable at getting this compliment. A few seconds go by in uncomfortable silence before Gladion lets out a small thank you, letting Ash know that Gladion isn't as scary as he first seems. As the pair sit finishing their meal, Ash gets up to start his normal nightly training before hitting the hay. Gladion, seeing this, tells Ash that he's going to be going to bed, and tells him to try and keep it down. Ash agrees, wishing him a good night, so Ash calls out his team. Having already introduced his Pokemon to execute when they ate earlier, he can get straight to training. Ash wants to use Executute's grass-type moves to help everyone get used to the tricky way they fight, using its sleep powder and other things to prepare for the upcoming gym battle against the known grass gym. So Ash uses Execute to start his grass-type training, allowing all of his Pokemon to face up against the typing, soon letting them grow a small understanding of how they fight, getting used to the sleep powders that it uses, and the bullet seeds, absorbs, all the tricky things it does. Ash soon has a practice match going up against its Litten, in a way to allow Execute to grow a bit of resistance to fire Pokemon, and get Litten used to fighting grass types. But when Ash calls for a confusion, the Pokemon stands still, and then gets hit by a flame charge, knocking it back a good few feet before anything even happens. As Ash looks at Execute asking if it's alright, the Pokemon nods, hitting Litten back with a Thief attack that does some serious damage. Ash is impressed and even makes him forget about the whole standing still thing. So the battle continues, and so does the training for the rest of the night, until the sun has completely set. At this point Ash knows it's time to hit the hay, going into his bed and calling it a night, shouting out to Gladion to have a good night's rest. However, he doesn't get a response. Ash takes this as Gladion's already asleep and goes to sleep himself. Meanwhile, in Gladion's tent, he sits checking over his own injuries with Charmander and Eevee, realising that what Ash had said is true. He probably won't be able to travel for a while on his own. Seeing his injuries from previous incidents have left quite a serious mark on his body, he realises now he probably should just rest and take this time to travel light with Ash. He hates it, but he knows it's probably for the best. But he's not sure how he's going to feed him while Ash is around. He can't afford to let anyone find out about him, otherwise she might find him. So, for now, he'll have to feed him in the cover of night. As the next day rolls around, Ash wakes up to find Gladion already awake, having cooked some food. Truthfully, Ash had expected Gladion to try and leave, and to find him half dead outside his tent during the night, but he guesses his injuries were worse than he had thought. However, Gladion looks a bit dirty, messed up, and maybe even has more injuries than yesterday, but he keeps that part to himself. As the pair sit down to eat, Ash calls out his Pokemon to feed them, with Gladion explaining how he already had fed all of his Pokemon. Ash, hearing this, gets on with his normal morning routine, before finishing to eat some breakfast with Gladion, where the pair once again sit and eat in silence for a few seconds, before Gladion is the one to break the silence, asking if Ash is the student of Kukui. Ash almost spits out the food he was chewing on and takes a second to catch himself, not sure what to say. Gladion, having seen the news and having met Ash and Kukui last time they were together, he's pretty much figured it all out, but wants to hear the truth. The trainer from Pallet takes a second to figure things out before nodding his head, saying that he has been training under Kukui for the last few months, and Ash flinches in expectation, expected to be bombarded with questions or weird looks, but is pleasantly surprised to see Gladion looking just as annoyed as always, and sees he looks no different. In fact, it almost seems like he doesn't care, only simply responding with that he had guessed that was right. After all, the Alolan starter and always being around Kukui, kind of a big giveaway. Ash chuckles, saying that he had no intentions of keeping it a massive secret. They just decided to keep it one to avoid Ash's journey being bombarded with news interviews and people trying to prove a point by fighting Ash. Gladion can see the logic in it as they fall silent again. Ash this time respects the silence, finishing his food before applying some fresh bandages to Gladion, and he really can see that there are more injuries on his body than before. He just chooses not to bring it up. Ash, having finished applying some bandages, stands up and gets ready to head off and train, but he's stopped by Gladion asking for one thing, a battle. But that's where I'm leaving this part for now. I hope everyone enjoyed. With Ash gaining a lot of new things, a new self of worth, a new gym badge, a new Pokemon, and possibly a new ally in this world, what do people think Gladion's future holds, and how do you think the next gym battle will go? Well, you can find that out next time. That all being said, I do hope people enjoyed this part. I love writing for this series. Every time I sit down and write for it, I really enjoy it. Even if I was losing my mind trying to say execute earlier. This was originally supposed to be one major part. I was going to do Erica, Gladion, and Surge all in one part. I wasn't going to do it in that order. I was going to do it in the other order, Surge, Gladion, Erica, but you'll see what happens as time goes on. That all being said, I hope everyone has a lovely day and a great night, and I hope you all enjoy. Have a good one.